What's up, guys? How are we doing, YouTube? It is Tuesday, May 23rd. I'm Nevola here in our digital newsroom. So thanks for watching. Check in with us on YouTube. Remember, you can always engage with us. Use that live chat box that you see in the right-hand corner of your screen. We're going to be jumping around to a lot of live events and any breaking news that we have coming in to our sources. We hope that you're joining us on your lunch break or just chilling out in your bed watching YouTube. We want to bring just an engaging show to you guys today. So take a look at the U.S. Capitol. That's what it looks like today in D.C. Another cloudy day here, super stormy. We're waiting for that sunshine to break through. I don't think I've seen the sun in a few days. But we're going to open the show today with a very special, well, first of all, I want to introduce you. We got Cam in the studio today saying hey to our GoPro over there. Cam is going to be shadowing and interning for the next few weeks, few months, or a couple months. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see how that all goes. So we got his help in here. So it's exciting to have another face in here. But you guys have heard about, we've been following the story about the Bowie State University student, the second lieutenant in the U.S. Army, who was fatally stabbed on the University of Maryland campus just a few days ago, just days shy of the graduation. A very, very somber, very terrifying, horrible event for the University of Maryland and for the community here in the DMV. So I'm going to start by showing you a little preview, a little package, a Nat Sound package that we put together last night of his vigil. That was last night. And it was just a beautiful video. So I'm going to play that for you guys here. Lindsay Watts, our reporter for Fox 5 DC, had this story and she tweeted out this beautiful tweet. We will not forget you, Richard Collins III, who was murdered 2 days ago. Check out this video.
He was outstanding, no question about it.
Lieutenant Collins was funny and brilliant, and not just smart. He was brilliant. Shadows come.
When I heard about the news, I couldn't even believe it. I was like, there's no way. There's no possible way. I love you, I will remember you for the rest of my life.
Long for heaven and
We have to wonder what is wrong with our world. Why is violence so rampant in our society? Why?
Let us remember how he was and live how he would want us to.
Constant friend is he.
So I ask you, as we move forward, let's cry. Let's remember and laugh.
He watches.
Let's keep on working.
His eye is on the sparrow. I know he watches.
Let's celebrate Richard by being great every day.
So great. I can even. So that was video from yesterday, and today Bowie State University walked. They had their commencement ceremony. We took it live to Facebook, so go ahead and check out our Facebook stream, our Facebook page, if you want to catch that ceremony. We'll be right back with you guys, bringing you a shot of the White House.
surpluses, supplies like we do. Thank you all very much. Again, we'll be available for questions. You can reach out to John. Snap. I will talk. Yes, thank you. No, I will. Thank you for that. We'll take Snap, and then I will go. Thank you. And I talked about it a little bit, but go ahead. I thought I answered the Snap question.
But you touched on it, but I had to follow up on the Snap question
Okay.
from yesterday. You said that you would be phasing in the work requirements, and I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that process and how quickly you expect that to happen, and also if you could tell us what you would say to the able-bodied Americans you referenced who were saying, I want to work, but I can't find work.
Gotcha. The answer to your question is I'm not familiar with the details of how we phase it in over time, so I apologize. We have to get back to you on that one. But in terms of what we'd say to people is, great, thank you. Thank you for wanting to work, because we need you as a nation to do that. So we are starting on the exact same page. So we are going to do everything we can to help you find a job that you are suited to, and a job that you can use to help take care of you, yourself, and your family. That's not the problem. Okay, the folks who are out there who are on food stamps and want to work, we'll be able to work with them to solve the problem. Okay, they are not what's causing the difficulties in SNAP. It's the folks who are on there who don't want to work. And that's what we're trying to point out to people is, look, if there's 44 million people on there, 8 years removed from the end of the recession, maybe it's reasonable to ask if there are folks who are on there who shouldn't be. That is a reasonable question to ask. I would even suggest to you it's a compassionate question to ask. But I can assure you, if you're in this country and you want to work, there's good news, because Donald Trump is president, and we're going to get 3% growth, and we're going to give you the opportunity to go back to work. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Do you have any idea on the numbers on SNAP?
All right, guys, if you're on, thanks for sticking with us through our technical difficulties. That was Director Mulvaney talking about Trump's new budget proposal that came out last night. We only caught a little bit of that on sound, but you can definitely head over to our Facebook page for more updates and web stories. We're going to be jumping around on various different stories today, various sources that we have coming in. Of course, President Trump is on his first foreign trip, his first international trip. He's heading off to Rome today. So we'll jump out of the shot. But that's an inside look at the White House press briefing room. That's where we go every day when we throw it over to Sean Spicer. Take that volume down, usually in the afternoon if he's on camera. I believe today there is a briefing not on camera. Here, we'll bring it back into our newsroom here. So that's where we go. Usually, sometimes there's special events and special speeches being held there, and that was Director Mulvaney talking about the budget. So Ronica Cleary will have more on that story later on this afternoon. We're going to bring you over to a shot of the White House before we get our show rolling up again, so stick with us. All right, guys, thanks for jumping in here again. You're looking at a shot in the upper left-hand corner of your screen of England, of Manchester. We're going to be going to a special statement from the police there, of course, about the breaking news that happened last night, where an explosive went off ISIS is claiming responsibility for that at the Ariana Grande concert in Manchester. We're going to be getting an update on that, a police statement very shortly, so that's what you're looking at now. But first, we're going to head over to the House Intelligence Committee over here on Capitol Hill, right here in Washington, D.C., where former director of the CIA, John Brennan, is speaking. He's testifying about that whole Russia investigation that we've been talking about for weeks and months that's been going on. And this will be very interesting to see the former CIA director talking about this on the floor. Let's see what he has to say. We're going to shoot over there, and then we'll break in for other breaking news as we have it. Thanks as always for watching Fox 5 Live, guys, and feel free to comment in our chat box and engage with us. We want to hear what you have to say. And you can always use the hashtag Fox 5 Live and check us out on Twitter as well. So let's go over to the House Intelligence Committee live here on Capitol Hill.
Foreign interference, whether we will smartly arm ourselves against any future such digital invasion, whether we are strong enough to make good on the promise to be a nation of rule by law, whether we will hold those accountable who seek to abrade our cherished institutions, whether we will stand up for democracy or enable this insidious autocracy and kleptocracy. Much is at stake. No one should be misled, however, because this isn't just about Russia. This is about us and our mettle. The famous American diplomat George Kennan said at the outset of the Cold War, much depends on the health and vigor of our own society. And indeed it does. We're being tested. We're divided. We've gone to our respective corners and claimed our own set of facts. Anger has become the currency of our civic discourse. Reason has been replaced with decibel level. But you know what? People also yearn for a reaffirmation of the value of narrative of America, which is the very thing that makes us great. That's what I hear when I'm home, whether I'm playing cards with my buddies or out to a movie with my wife Paula or having coffee in the narthex of church. And do you know why? Do you know why Americans yearn for this? It's because it's what makes it possible for us to be for something bigger than ourselves. And that is precisely what America is hoping, if not counting on us on this dais to do, to be for something bigger for ourselves and to put our country above party. And I pray that that's what we'll do. Thank you, sir, for your decades of service and for your presence here today.
Gentleman's time has expired. Mr. Crawford, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will yield to the gentleman from South Carolina. You may ask Mr. Gowdy.
Thank my friend from Arkansas. Director Brennan, do you know who commissioned the Steele dossier?
I don't.
Do you know if the FBI paid for any portion of the Steele dossier?
I don't know. I know that there are press reports related to that, but I don't know. I have no firsthand knowledge of that.
Do you know whether any of the underlying allegations made in the Steele dossier were ever tested, probed, examined, cross-examined, whether the sources were examined for reliability, credibility?
I know that there were efforts made by the Bureau to try to understand whether or not any of the information in that was valid, but I don't have any firsthand knowledge of it.
Do you know if the Bureau ever relied on the Steele dossier as part of any court filings, applications, petitions, pleadings?
I have no awareness.
Did the CIA rely on it?
No.
Why not?
Because we didn't. It wasn't part of the corpus of intelligence information that we had. It was not in any way used as a basis for the intelligence community assessment that was done. It was not.
All right, this is my last line of question. I hope I have waited sufficiently long enough to ask you about leaks to not inflame the anger of our friends in the media who think Republicans are hyper-focused on it, so we'll just do it last. Some of your colleagues have testified that our surveillance programs are critical, vital, indispensable to our national security. Do you agree with their assessment?
Speaking generally, yes, some of those programs are absolutely essential and vital to our national security.
Do you agree that there is at least a tacit agreement between the American people and their government that they will allow us certain power, certain freedoms in exchange for safeguarding the privacy of the information collected?
I think there is certainly an expectation that there would be a protection of privacy as the government carries out its responsibilities, yes.
And you and I discussed some of those privacy protections, even within the intelligence community, as it relates to U.S. persons. And you've been very clear this morning. In fact, I've noted the times you've said U.S. persons. You could have inserted a name, but you did not. You had the discipline to say U.S. person. And that discipline is practiced throughout the intelligence community unless and until there is a request to unmask that U.S. person's name, correct?
I would like to think that discipline is still exercised even if a request to unmask a name is made.
All right. So we protect U.S. persons even within those like yourself and Director Pompeo and Admiral Rogers and Director Comey and the people that we trust with awesome powers. We still impose some restrictions on them and that they have to request an unmasking. There has to be, I assume, a justification. You can't just wake up in the morning and say, hey, I feel like knowing who participated in X, Y, and Z. There has to be justification, right?
Yes.
All right. So how do we get from that to names being on the front pages of certain major U.S. newspapers?
It's an excellent question.
What would be an equally excellent answer?
That somebody violated their oath to protect classified information and violated that oath and shared that information in an unauthorized fashion with members of the media.
Well, my friend from Washington, and he is my friend, I was impressed not only with his eloquence, but the conviction with which he just spoke. But I've got other colleagues, not from Washington, that tend to minimize the nature of leaks as if there is somehow a weighing and a balancing that needs to take place between how interesting we may find the underlying information, how interesting we may find the underlying names. I have seen attempts, unfortunately, by members of this very body to mitigate and explain away and minimize what it does to the surveillance programs to have leaks of classified information. So I will finish with this. I believe there's some surveillance programs that are up for reauthorization. What would you say to the American people as names are unmasked on the last day that people are in office and classified information appears on the front pages of major U.S. newspapers? How would you tell your constituents, let's reauthorize this program again, despite the fact that we have abuses? How help us make that argument when we go home?
Mr. Gowdy, you and your colleagues here are going to have to make that argument based on the merits of the program and the importance of it to our national security, as well as trying to send a reassuring message to them that if there have been any abuses of the accesses to that information, either because of the number of people involved or those who were, in fact, violating their oath of office, that you and your colleagues will do everything possible to make sure you work with the executive branch to minimize and mitigate that danger and that prospect.
Gentleman's time expired. Mr. Stefanik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Director Brennan, for your service. My questions will be focused on the process and development of the intelligence community assessment. As you know, the previous administration directed the intelligence community to produce a comprehensive intelligence report assessing Russian activities and intentions on December 9th. The unclassified version of that report incorporated information as of December 29th. In your experience as an analyst and as the director, what is the average time that it typically takes to produce an IC assessment?
It can range from days to months to years, in fact, depending on the complexity of the matter, as well as the urgency of getting something out, but it really does vary widely.
So you noted that the complexity can have an impact on the timeliness to produce a comprehensive report. This report was produced in just 20 days in December. Was there anything about this interagency process?
Okay, guys, we're going to be in and out of that House Intelligence Committee hearing with former CIA Director John Brennan throughout the day. He'll be testifying, or throughout the morning. I think they'll take some breaks. Pretty interesting stuff there. But I want to bring you also to the Senate Dems right now on Capitol Hill are speaking about Trump care and its possible effects on rural America. We see Senator Al Franken there and a couple others as well chatting about this. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Let's see what they have to say just for a moment. We'll kind of jump back and forth. As always, thanks for watching Fox 5 Live. I'm Molly Nevola here in the digital newsroom, and this is Cameron, my assistant over here. He'll be here for a little while helping out. So thanks for watching. Feel free to use our live chat box. We're excited to have you here. Let's bring these Senate Dems full screen and see what they have to say.
Devastate, and we can't have that happen. And I keep a little sign over my desk in the office, and it says, "The patient comes first." And I think that's when you start to look at this legislation and how this is managed, we certainly hope you keep that in mind as well. And that's all I have. And I'm going to introduce Dr. Rosenberg. Thank you. I'm Dr. Robert Rosenberg. I'm a radiologist from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I specialize in mammography and breast cancer diagnosis, and I work in a large healthcare system that's centered in Albuquerque. But besides Albuquerque, we provide services to several rural hospitals in New Mexico, places like Socorro, Tucumcari, Espanola, and Clovis. So I have experience collaborating with doctors in these small rural areas, and it showed me that they are already under pressure. With the current workload, I recently reviewed images from a patient and immediately referred the patient, who I thought had breast cancer, to a surgeon for care. And he made it clear that there are already too few providers in that region, and that these are hospitals that are already hour or several hour drives away from other centers. So it's obvious that cutting coverages like Medicaid will seriously hurt healthcare access to many rural residents and undermine the viability of the hospitals. I think these communities need more help, not less. Thank you.
And with that, I think we'll open it up to questions. But one of the things you'll see in the report is that just top line issues, when you look at the things that have really been either helpful to rural America or troubling, Medicaid expansion has really allowed us to see a much larger percentage of the population covered. That puts rural health infrastructure, clinics and hospitals further into the black instead of being into the red, and keeps their doors open. The opioid epidemic, this legislation would result in a reduction in services at a time when that is literally devastating rural America. And we certainly can't lose our clinics and our hospitals. So with that, we'll open up for questions. Go ahead.
You don't actually expect this to pass in its current form, so is this more kind of a...
Well, I think it needs to be clear that there's an enormous contrast between what the president ran on and what he promised the American people, and the kind of legislation that is being crafted in Washington, D.C. And that is incredibly important. And I think there is a risk here of starting with an absolutely terrible, even cruel bill, as Senator Franken, I think was the word he used, and seeing that improved marginally, and then that viewed as progress. We are starting with a product here that is fundamentally unsound. The Medicaid expansion.
Then, trying to shore it up. Where do you see your allies?
Well, I think, the people that we will be reaching out to and the conversations that are already occurring, there are a number of our colleagues from Republican colleagues from Medicaid expansion states that have seen the improvements in rural coverage. And that also are very acutely aware of what could happen to rural infrastructure, where you had, basically when the ACA was passed, rural healthcare providers accepted lower payments, knowing that they would get more of their patients covered. And that put a number of facilities back in the black, literally, and kept their doors open. If you take away that coverage, but you don't give them higher reimbursement rates back, then they're losing on both sides of the equation, and that would be devastating. So we're not accepting that. We're arguing over how quickly we defund Medicaid. I don't think that's a premise that I would accept.
Looking at the president's budget, which he rolled out today, do you see that as another example of something which could hurt rural health care in the sense of funding for health services and whatnot? Or are you less concerned given that it seems like that proposal is being met with some pushback from them?
Well, I'm pleased that it's being met with pushback, but it's once again an example of the rhetoric of the campaign.
So, guys, that was the Senate Democrats on the Hill there. That's going on live right now. We're going to jump in and out of that content so that you have kind of a mix of stuff as to what's going on today. Of course, the Manchester tragedy from last night, everyone's talking about it, reporting on it. There's still more facts coming out about it. What we know, of, if you guys have been following this, of course, is that it all unfolded outside the Ariana Grande concert last night. I remember it was around 5:30 our time, PM, Eastern time here. I'm not sure where you guys are watching from, but let us know in the comments. And everything kind of unfolded. We know that 22 are dead, 59 injured, 12 of, what is it? What's the stat? Are under 16. 12 of those, like 59 injured, were wounded, were injured. So we're younger than 16, so definitely a scary stat on that. So I'm going to bring you over to a video that we had earlier of Prime Minister Theresa May, who had some words, British Prime Minister Theresa May, who had some words on this tragedy, the greatest tragedy since, the greatest in number, since those 2005, if you guys remember those terrorist attacks. I remember very distinctly because I was in college, and I remember I had some friends that were abroad in London during those attacks. So this Theresa May speaking about the deadly explosion from earlier. Let's check out this video.
But I want to tell you what I can at this stage. At 10:33 last night, the police were called to reports of an explosion at Manchester Arena in Manchester city centre near Victoria train station. We now know that a single terrorist detonated his improvised explosive device near one of the exits of the venue, deliberately choosing the time and place to cause maximum carnage and to kill and injure indiscriminately. The explosion coincided with the conclusion of a pop concert, which was attended by many young families and groups of children. All acts of terrorism are cowardly attacks on innocent people, but this attack stands out for its appalling, sickening cowardice, deliberately targeting innocent, defenseless children and young people who should have been enjoying one of the most memorable nights of their lives. As things stand, I can tell you that in addition to the attacker, 22 people have died and 59 people have been injured. Those who were injured are being treated in 8 different hospitals across Greater Manchester. Many are being treated for life-threatening conditions. And we know that among those killed and injured were many children and young people. We struggle to comprehend the warped and twisted mind that sees a room packed with young children not as a scene to cherish, but as an opportunity for carnage. But we can continue to resolve to thwart the future, to take on and defeat the ideology that often fuels this violence, and if there turn out to be others responsible for this attack, to seek them out and bring them to justice. The police and security services believe that the attack was carried out by one man, but they now need to know whether he was acting alone or as part of a wider group. It will take some time to establish these facts, and the investigation will continue. The police and security services will be given all the resources they need to complete that task. The police and security services believe they know the identity of the perpetrator, but at this stage of their investigations, we cannot confirm his name. The police and emergency services have, as always, acted with great courage, and on behalf of the country, I want to express our gratitude to them. They acted in accordance with the plans they have in place and the exercises they conduct to test those plans, and they performed with the utmost professionalism. 400 police officers were involved in the operation through the night, and many paramedics, doctors and nurses have worked valiantly amid traumatic and terrible scenes to save lives and care for the wounded. Significant resources have been deployed to the police investigation, and there continue to be visible patrols around Manchester, which include the deployment of armed officers. For people who live and work in Manchester, there remains a large cordon in place around Manchester Arena and Victoria Station, which will be in place for some time. The station is closed and will remain closed while a detailed forensic search is underway. We know that many friends and relatives of people caught up in the attack are still trying to find out what has happened to their children, brothers and sisters, parents and loved ones. So please, think of those people who are experiencing unimaginable worry, and if you have any information at all relating to the attack, please contact Greater Manchester Police. The threat level remains at severe. That means that a terrorist attack remains highly likely. But the Independent Joint Terrorism Analysis Centre, which sets the threat level on the basis of the intelligence available to them, will continue to assess this throughout today and in the days ahead. Later today, I will travel to Manchester to meet the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police, Ian Hopkins, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, and members of the emergency services who have come to Manchester's aid in its moment of need. And as I announced last night, the general election campaign has been suspended. I will chair another meeting of COBRA later today. At terrible moments like these, it is customary for leaders, politicians and others to condemn the perpetrators and declare that the terrorists will not win. But the fact that we have been here before, and the fact that we need to say this again, does not make it any less true. For as so often while we experienced the worst of humanity in Manchester last night, we also saw the best. The cowardice of the attacker met the bravery of the emergency services and the people of Manchester. The attempt to divide us met countless acts of kindness that brought people closer together. And in the days ahead, those must be the things we remember. The images we hold in our minds should not be those of senseless slaughter, but of the ordinary men and women who put concerns about their own safety to one side and rushed to help. Of the men and women of the emergency services who worked tirelessly to bring comfort, to help, and to save lives. Of the messages of solidarity and hope of all those who opened their homes to the victims. For they are the images that embody the spirit of Manchester and the spirit of Britain, a spirit that through years of conflict and terrorism has never been broken and will never be broken. There will be difficult days ahead. We offer our thoughts and prayers to the family and friends of those affected. We offer our full support to the authorities, the emergency and the security services as they go about their work. And we all, every single one of us, stand with the people of Manchester at this terrible time. And today, let us remember those who died, and let us celebrate those who helped, safe in the knowledge that the terrorists will never win, and our values, our country, and our way of life will always prevail.
So that was the update from Prime Minister Theresa May out of London, I believe she was, and that was earlier. We had that also on our Facebook page as well, where you can see lots of video that we post. So follow us there, Fox 5 DC. I want to show you also this tweet from the U.S. Embassy in London. This was earlier. Check it out. They say, our flag has been lowered as a mark of respect for those affected. And that was a picture of their half-staff flag. Our thoughts and prayers are with Manchester. So just an interesting tweet coming out of the U.S. Embassy in London. All right, over now to Italy. Check it out. This is Rome. Right now, this is a live shot of Air Force One down on the tarmac in Rome. President Trump has landed in Rome, so he's going to be meeting with Pope Francis. This will be their first actual meeting, and it'll be behind closed doors. I'm told that we won't have that live on camera or on camera at all, which is kind of a bummer. But he will be touring the Sistine Chapel as well and doing, different things in Vatican City, like you do in Vatican City. So that's kind of interesting. He'll be meeting with the Prime Minister as well of Italy, and we'll take what we can get, whatever sources we have from his visit to Rome we'll have for you. So just a live shot here of Air Force One on the tarmac. And if you guys are just joining us, this is a live shot of Air Force One on the tarmac in Rome. This is, I think, the third stop on President Trump's first foreign trip. So he went to Saudi Arabia, Israel, of course, which we brought to you all of yesterday with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and others, the president there, President Rivlin in Israel. So early events yesterday of President Trump. Now he's in Rome, back to Europe and onward towards Belgium and a few more before he completes his first international trip. So we'll see what this trip has to offer, what we can get in from Rome. Coming back locally to a story that is a little closer to our hearts here and more local is the murder of a Bowie State second lieutenant in the U.S. Army who was slated to graduate today. We have that graduation live on our Facebook page if you guys want to check it out. He was fatally stabbed on the University of Maryland campus, and our reporter Lindsay Watts has been following the story and honoring him, and there was a beautiful vigil for him last night that we also put together a package for. So check out this video in honor of Second Lieutenant Richard Collins III, who died 2 days ago.
Is the length of a football field long. So it does take quite a bit of momentum.
He was outstanding, no question about it.
Lieutenant Collins was funny, brilliant, and not just smart. He was brilliant.
When I heard about the news, I couldn't even believe it. I was like, there's no way. There's no possible way. I love you, man. I will remember you for the rest of my life.
Long for heaven and
We have to wonder what is wrong with our world. Why is violence so rampant in our society?
Guys, we're going to cut in for a moment here into this vigil. We'll replay this later. We have some breaking news out of Manchester, England. Finally, this press conference that we were looking for earlier. Police have an update on last night. Let's take that live.
To work with those families and ensure that they are properly supported before we release the names of those that have sadly lost their lives. As you would expect, the police response across Greater Manchester has been significant today as we help people to continue to go about their daily business and lead their lives here in Greater Manchester. Part of this response has seen us arrest a 23-year-old man in connection with the attack, and we've also carried out 2 warrants, one in Whalley Range and one in Fallowfield. The one in Fallowfield did see us undertake a controlled explosion to gain entry, and again I just wish to reassure those communities that was something that we were doing to gain safe access. It is nothing to be concerned about. We understand that feelings are very raw right now and that people are bound to be looking for answers. However, more than ever, it is vital that our diverse communities that make Greater Manchester such a strong place actually stand together and support each other, as we will be doing in the vigil at 6 p.m. this evening. We will therefore not tolerate hate towards any parts of our community, and should communities be suffering from hate incidents or crime, then I would please urge them to report it to us. This afternoon, as you saw, we were visited by the Home Secretary, Theresa May, and the Home Secretary, Amber Rudd, both of whom were given a briefing about our ongoing operations and the investigation over today and the next few days. I can confirm that the man suspected of carrying out last night's atrocity is 22-year-old Salman Abidi. However, he has not yet been formally named by the coroner, and I wouldn't wish to therefore comment any further about him at this stage. Our priority, along with the police counter-terrorist network and our security partners, is to continue to establish whether he was acting alone or working as part of a wider network. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
So it looks like just a quick brief update there from police in Manchester, giving the name of the suspect that they're still trying to identify with the coroner. So it sounds, we had known this before, that he is deceased, and they're still working to figure out if he was acting alone. So some new information there coming out of Manchester with police there. So we're going to bring you back over to Rome. Check out this live shot. This is Air Force One in Rome. President Trump is there to meet with the Pope, and he'll be touring some other sites in Italy as well, meeting with the Prime Minister, and then on to Brussels for a summit with NATO leaders, back to Italy for a meeting in Sicily, and then eventually back to the United States. So that's sort of his schedule as he travels through Europe after his Middle East foreign trip, along with Melania, Ivanka Trump, and Jared Kushner are there as well. We've seen a lot of that footage as we've been following his trip. So I'm going to bring you back now to this vigil, back locally to this vigil for the fallen second lieutenant in the Army from Bowie State University who was set to graduate today. Take a look at this package that we put together last night.
Should I feel
He was outstanding, no question about it.
scared? Lieutenant Collins was funny and brilliant, and not just smart. He was brilliant. Shadows come.
When I heard about the news, I couldn't even believe it. I was like, there's no way. There's no possible way. I love you, man. I will remember you for the rest of my life.
Long for heaven and
We have to wonder what is wrong with our world. Why is violence so rampant in our society? Why?
Let us remember how he was and live how he would want us to.
So I ask you, as we move forward, let's cry. Let's remember and laugh. Let's keep on working.
His eye is on the sparrow. I know he watches.
Let's celebrate with you by being great every day.
So I wanted to replay that for you guys in honor of that second lieutenant who should have graduated today. Very tragic incident on the University of Maryland campus. That suspect was, I was told, arraigned in court yesterday, so we'll be following that as well to see what becomes of him. But over now, I want to bring you to a recent tweet 26 minutes ago from President Donald Trump. Check it out. We'll bring this full screen. This is what he just tweeted out after tweeting that he had a great time in Saudi Arabia and Israel and that he's going on to Italy and NATO in Brussels and the G7 summit. He just tweeted, "All civilized nations must join together to protect human life and the sacred right of our citizens to live in safety and in peace." So a recent tweet from the president, who is just now on the ground in Rome, and that's where he is heading to. According to his schedule, that's his next stop. So we'll be following that and monitoring that. If we have any live video for you, we'll bring that to you as well. So if you guys are just joining us, you're watching the arrival of President Trump in Rome, Italy. So we'll probably see this live. Usually they take the president's takeoffs and landings, and when he comes out of the plane, we'll see him wave to the crowd here. So that's what you're watching if you're just coming in. This is live pictures from over in Rome. We've been following President Trump's international trip as much as we can to see who he's been meeting with and some of his events in Israel, of course, yesterday at the Western Wall, the first president, actually, the first sitting U.S. president to go up and touch the wall and visit the Western Wall, the special holy site for Jews over in Jerusalem. And now we have him here in Rome. He'll be meeting with Pope Francis for the first time and making his visit to Rome for a few days before leaving for Brussels and then back to Italy to the island of Sicily in southern Italy. So we'll take a watch here. He should be coming out shortly. This is sort of the ceremonial procession of how it all works when the president lands in Air Force One and comes off onto the tarmac. As always, thanks for watching Fox 5 Live. I'm Molly here in the digital newsroom, and you guys are watching on our stream, so thanks for joining us on YouTube. Feel free to chat along with us and follow us at Fox 5 DC on all platforms, and I'm at Molly Nevola on all platforms as well, so you can engage with us and follow along. So yeah, we'll stay on this source for a little bit before we have some other sources to bring to you, including a state of NASA from NASA headquarters in DC. We're going to jump over to there next, so stay with us. All right, guys, if you're just joining us, we're waiting on President Trump to step off the plane here in Rome. But just so you can get a glance of that, we're going to split screen it for you guys and bring you also over to NASA headquarters in D.C. It's in Southwest Washington, where NASA is giving an update on the state of NASA. So exciting stuff, always interesting out of NASA. If you're interested, we're going to bring up the sound on that and keep it here also so you can see President Trump's arrival.
Pressure on the budget in the entire country. We did really well as we go forward. We've had a horizon goal for some time of putting humans on Mars. We're there today with our scientific platforms, bringing back the kind of data we need, but this budget sustains that work toward getting toward that horizon goal. It gives us the resources we need to keep exploring our solar system, beyond our solar system, and exploring here on our own planet. Worry about our own home, what we're doing here, and the technologies it's going to take to increase the aviation industry here in the U.S. There were still some hard choices that we had to make, right? We always do. That's what we do as an agency. We just can't do everything that we want to do, but we can do a lot. And you guys do a lot every day, and I think that's what, if you really want to see where it all plays out, it's out there on the web at nasa.gov/budget. It's where we post everything, so it's all there in gory detail if you want to get into it and see where your own areas are affected. You know, I think over the last couple of months, we've had the president really recognize the work we're doing. It was pretty amazing to be there when, if you guys all know astronaut Peggy Whitson, who's on station right now, just finished the spacewalk this morning. She's now holds the record for the most time in space. And I was there when the president called, did an uplink with the ISS folks to congratulate her on that. That was pretty neat. We got rovers on Mars and an orbiter at Mars, bringing back the data that's going to help us get ready for taking humans to the red planet. Again, very exciting. Team at Goddard just finished the James Webb Space Telescope testing, and the telescope's been moved down to Johnson Space Center for the next big test to put it in the cold vacuum of space and run it through its paces there. That mission is moving out. Couldn't be more proud of that team and what they've done to get that next great observatory ready to go. SLS and Orion are far beyond concepts at this point. Like I said, we've got an engine test today. We have a solid rocket booster test later this summer. The first sections of the core stage have made it to Marshall Space Flight Center for the structural testing that's going to go on. Orion continues to make great progress. We're putting their systems together down at the Cape. It's just exciting to see all the progress being made there as we move toward that first integrated flight test, EM1, the first of many, right? We're not just pushing toward EM1, we're pushing toward a series of missions to build that program and put that infrastructure in place that's going to allow us to have a backbone for deep space exploration as we move forward. Solar electric propulsion, a technology that space technology has been working on for a while, and it was really part of the asteroid redirect mission. We're going to continue that because we think it's a key linchpin in what we're trying to do with the power propulsion unit in an area around the moon where we can actually do some more of that infrastructure we think we need as we head toward putting humans further in space. And of course, our next X-plane is in development to advance the supersonic flight. Very exciting times, y'all, very exciting. And each one of you, every day, is helping us to create that future and keeps us focused on that big picture that informs everything we do. You know, we see our work in the context of making life better for everybody here on Earth, and that unfolds in a whole lot of ways when you think about what we do. You've heard me before, and I'll say it again, I really have started resonating with this whole concept of why NASA, why are we here, and what do we do from that perspective. And I really like to say we can never forget the N in NASA, which is national, right? If you think about that, it's because we're not headquarters, we're not Goddard, we're not Langley, we're not Johnson, we're not a single center, right? We're an organization that does tremendous things as a group. We have a balanced portfolio. We're not a single program, we're not a single mission, right? We're a lot of programs and a lot of missions. And we cover this broad spectrum, right, of well thought out programs that they're integrated, and we try to do them in a very strategic way. And they're very aligned with the Space Act that was written 60 years ago that created NASA. 2018 is going to be our 60th anniversary as an agency, right? And it's pretty fascinating when you see what we do today and you go back and read the original Space Act. Yes, some stuff has changed, but for the most part, we're very strategically aligned with what we're doing. We really have maintained that continuity of purpose over time, right? And I think this budget continues that for us in supporting not only what we want to do as an agency, but also several other national priorities. As we approach that 60th anniversary, this budget will maintain that. It'll maintain our place as a leader, I think, a global leader in space and a global leader here at home in aviation and aeronautics and what we do. We appreciate the continued bipartisan commitment we get. If you look at the Transition Authorization Act that we got for 2017, you look at the omnibus we got for 2017, the appropriation. I mean, it's a pretty incredible bipartisan support we get as an agency, and we should be excited about that. One of the challenges we have is our goals and our programs typically they can work over decades. You think about how many different budget submittals, how many different budget processes we have to go through just to get a long-term program in place. It's very difficult to maintain that continuity of purpose. And I think for us, what this budget says is keep going, right? And that's a good thing for us because some of these missions we're trying to do are long-term and are going to take us a while to get there. If you think about what we do, though, you think about kind of the fundamental, I'll call it, in our gut while we're here. I think we have a historic and enduring purpose as an agency. And that historic and enduring purpose is really around three major strategic themes in my mind, right? It's discover, explore, and develop. And these correspond to all our missions of scientific discovery, missions of human exploration, the technologies we develop, and in the development of aeronautic systems and aviation safety that we do for this nation. We're focused on these, but we never lose sight of the other contributions and the other things that we do as an agency. That's kind of what I just described as kind of our day job, right? And I think what we really do in the other areas is we inspire the next generation. That's what we do as an agency. We inject that innovation into the national economy. We provide data to national leaders to solve some of the biggest problems this nation has. And then we support this global engagement and diplomacy that I think is so important in a role that we play as a leader in the international part of what this agency does. The president said, American footprints on a distant world are not too big of a dream. And we're executing programs step by step to make this dream a reality, as well as that broader quest to explore and understand our environment, our universe, and our whole aviation and aeronautics world. Some of our newer missions are going to deliver the benefits that will reach far beyond the significant milestones we're trying to get today. The list is pretty amazing when you think about it. There's Solar Probe Plus. There's the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, or TESS as we call it. The InSight Mars Lander, and as I mentioned earlier, the Webb Telescope. They're all scheduled to fly in 2018, right? That's what we're going to do during this budget year. Very, very exciting. And then, of course, we continue the development of the next generation X-plane for NASA. That's going to fly in 2021 to really investigate low-boom supersonic flight, which could be a tremendous game changer for not only this country, but the economy in general. As a traveler, I'm looking forward to that personally. We're going to continue working with our commercial partners to fly astronauts from American soil for the first time here in a couple of years. So that's a big goal. This budget continues to support that. And we continue to head toward an integrated flight system test for our exploration mission with SLS Orion and ground systems. So the human exploration side of this is very important. The budget really supports that progress, right? But it's a very diverse portfolio. A lot of you work on different things, and I think everybody can hopefully find themselves somewhere in that explore, discover, and develop piece of what we do as an agency for the American people. Each of you in the centers, you know the full scope of what I'm talking about, right? You're doing it every day. And I've had a chance to visit a lot. I mean, I've gone all the way from, I started here in '89, and just even last week I saw something for the first time. I was at the NBL, the JSC guys took me to the Neutral Buoyancy Lab. Pretty exciting, right? You'd think I'd seen everything, but I got to go see those guys and watch that team work very professionally to get ready for a test run, right? We're doing that kind of stuff every day in this agency. And it's just about the challenges. I know how you guys face the challenges. I know the pride you take into it. I know the dedication of this workforce. It's what fuels the success. Now, there's some hard things we had to do in here, and so while this budget no longer supports several Earth science missions, the OCO3, the PACE mission, RBI.
If you guys are just joining us, welcome to the show. We are streaming live NASA TV. This is from NASA headquarters in Southwest Washington, D.C., giving an update on the state of NASA, sort of like a State of the Union, but for NASA, talking about Mars exploration and all that interesting stuff. So that is what's going on live right now. And you just watched sort of the end of President Trump's arrival into Rome. And we had that live streaming from Rome, from our pool over there in Italy. We saw him come out with Melania and Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner and the crew. So that is what was double screened there. But now we're back at NASA headquarters. This is live. So we'll take this as long as we have it, and then we'll jump back in with some more breaking news.
Same time we're going to do this, we're going to actually take a good hard look, use this opportunity for NASA to revisit how we do public outreach and public engagement. It takes place around all over the place, at all the centers throughout this country. We engage in that, and we got to leverage those synergies moving forward so that we can really kind of create that nexus between education and outreach to facilitate those meaningful connections that bring those folks forward to us. I don't think there's another workforce that does more to inspire others than you do. The willingness to share your time and expertise. I've been to several of the things we do as outreach events in this agency, and it's great to see the NASA folks there encouraging the next generation to, whether it's a robotic competition, whether it's a moon buggy, or I'm sorry, Great Exploration Rover, but it'll always be a moon buggy race to me, sorry. The exploration rover we do at Marshall, or whether it's the rocket challenge that just happened out here in Virginia a couple weekends ago. The NASA folks are there, they're engaged, and they're trying to help folks as we move forward. That mentoring and the overall impact of the work across the globe, you continue to make people want to follow us, right? That's what you guys do, and it's very exciting. You know, in each of these successes that we have, they bring that inherent inspiration that's going to make someone or lots of someones at some point jump into this field and come join us someday. We need that. We got to inspire and share because we need people to come take our jobs, right? There's got to be somebody standing here when NASA turns 120. Just like there's somebody standing there when we're going to turn 60. So I see these young faces at these conferences. If you've ever seen them, they're excited. When all the downlinks from the astronauts, just the public meetings that we have, it's pretty exciting. I call them I see the Mars generation, right? They're excited. They want us to get to Mars, and that's what they want us to go do, and they're very, very much a part of that. And we're going to keep bringing that potential.
Guys, you're watching an update from NASA TV. This is live. I'm Molly Nevola here in the digital newsroom. So welcome to the show. This is Cam helping me out today. I think we're definitely part of that Mars generation that wants to see humans on Mars. So I think this is fascinating just to hear from NASA. And it's really cool to have NASA in our backyard. We have their headquarters in Greenbelt in Maryland, and then their actual headquarters in Southwest Washington as well. So we'll keep an eye on this for now and then jump back in with some more breaking news. That's our Fox box going off, giving us some new video. So we'll bring that to you shortly. But let's check back in here at NASA headquarters and listen to what he has to say.
It's a good, healthy mix for what we're doing. Our work here just leads the world in size, scope, and impact. I truly believe that. And I think, when you think about it, the budget's going to keep us with the next selection of New Frontiers missions moving forward. We'll be able to make that selection. And it does the formulation of our Europa mission that's so important for us to go see. We think there's a great opportunity there to find that, but that always that search for is there life out there somewhere else as we move forward. The space weather and upcoming heliophysics work continues in this mission, and it continues the support for the Wide Field Infrared Survey Telescope, or WFIRST, which will eventually succeed James Webb Space Telescope at some point. Most of you know about the NASA Aeronautics Research Program and how it advances our U.S. leadership in a very, very large global environment. Very important for us to do that. We'll continue to do that by working on the key technologies, not only the low boom stuff, but the key technologies that make aviation safer, more efficient, and more economical moving forward. Takes that step to put that X plane in place that I talked about, and I think this is going to be very, very exciting. And then we continue to work, how do we put these unmanned aircraft systems into the airspace that we deal with on a daily basis. I don't think you have to be an engineer to understand that. I think you just got to be somebody that travels to enjoy what our aeronautics folks do. As we say, we're with you when you fly, and I believe that all the time. Space technology program is enabling, a lot of the rapid development of some of these transformative things that we need to go do, whether they're support of science, whether they're support of human exploration. But the space technology team is really working on those the technologies we need for our future missions. And they'll increase the overall national capabilities and industrial base as well. That's a goal that space technology has moving forward. They're going to support their diverse portfolio all the way from completing the solar electric propulsion work to the laser communication work that we're doing for the next generation of comm when we get on orbit. How are we going to deal with that? A lot of cross-cutting technologies they're working on, and a lot of you guys are engaged in those today. And while we're ending the asteroid redirect mission moving forward, we will take those technologies from solar electric propulsion as probably the best example, and move forward those and actually morph those into a different mission as we go forward. I think we have a budget that does support the continued cadence of missions that we want to have to get humans to Mars in the 2030s. I believe that's where we are. The European Service Module, it'll be delivered to Kennedy for integration to Orion in 2018. So great progress being made there for the first mission. We've got prototype ground testing of habitat modules, which is the next step even after that we're trying to work on. And that'll happen in 2018. Several folks want to be participating in that. The ISS continues to be kind of our jumping off point. This is our linchpin, right? This is our low Earth orbit stronghold. And that's where we're doing a lot of the work that we need to do to retire the risk associated with technologies, but also retire the risk associated with what happens to the human body. And the teams are up there learning that every day. And I think this is where we're going to learn systems too. We're going to take the systems up that help us to take those next steps. We're going to put an additional crew member on. We got some seats that we've bought that are going to have additional U.S. crew members coming up in September. So it's very exciting to see that we're going to have extra crew members so that we can really crank up the research that we need to do and the science we need to do on station. And again, ISS just continues to be a great example of public-private partnerships. If you think about the opportunities that people are taking to come there, it has truly become that spot where people that I think we really wanted it to become at some point, where folks wanted to come to the station to test out their systems and use the International Space Station as this wonderful lab that it is on orbit going forward. And the teams are doing a great job keeping it in play. And then of course, even on the human exploration side, we're going to announce the next crew of astronauts here in the next few weeks. So that's an exciting thing for us to do as well. We had 18,000 people apply. So there's no interest at all in what we're doing. So just a whole lot to look forward to as we move forward. For me, I've said this several times, I think some of you may be tired of hearing it. When we look at the overall resource scenario that we have in the agency, it's not this and or perspective. It's got to be an and, right? It's just got to be an and. We cannot do this alone. We're going to need our international partners. We're going to need the American industry, and we're going to need academia to jump in and be part of this. And I think if you think about what we've done.
So what do you guys think about this? Pretty awesome stuff coming out of NASA saying that we are eventually going to have humans on Mars in the 2030s. So definitely in our lifetime, which is super exciting. This is an update from NASA headquarters in Southwest Washington, D.C. if you're just joining us. And let us know what you think. Chat us up in the live chat and follow us on social. We're at Box5DC. Another event is coming down the pipeline right now. I'm going to switch over to it so that you can take a look just for a second. We'll keep our eye on NASA as well because this is super cool stuff, talking about their budget, the state of NASA right now. But right now, on the Hill, and I'm going to switch over in just a second, Senator Schumer, Sanders, and Pelosi, among others, are talking about Trump's budget, which just came down last night, and what they think about it and the effects that it will have on various demographics and communities. So let's jump over to Capitol Hill now, and then we'll come back to NASA in a second.
It's that combination, frankly, that makes this
budget, which seeks more than $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid and health care, would decimate health care options for rural Americans, children, seniors, and pull the rug on many of our rural hospitals throughout the country. Now, earlier, our colleague, Senator Cornyn of Texas, stated that this budget is, quote, a proposal of the president's priorities. Well, if that's true, it's clear the president has prioritized breaking his promises to the working people of America. For example, on the campaign trail, he promised over and over again he wouldn't cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. With this budget, he cuts 2 out of 3. He cuts Social Security disability benefits and cuts Medicaid by $1 trillion. The great irony of the Trump agenda is it hurts many of the people who supported him in the campaign. There is no clearer example of this irony than his budget. When you add it all up, the Trump budget is comic book villain bad, and just like comic books, it relies on fantasy to make all the numbers work. It's the kind of budget you might expect from someone who is rooting for a government shutdown. I'm optimistic it'll be roundly rejected by both parties here in the Congress. The way that we can reach a funding agreement in September is to do what we did last month. Work together on a bipartisan basis, reject this extreme budget, tell President Trump and Mick Mulvaney to stay out of the negotiations, and come up with a plan that will help the American people and create jobs here at home. Leader Pelosi.
Thank you very much, Leader Schumer. It's an honor to be here with you and the distinguished ranking member of the Senate Budget Committee, as well as the distinguished ranking member of the House Budget Committee. I associate myself with their remarks, which I heard by phone on the way over. Here we are. President Trump's budget is a stark showcase of President Trump's broken promises to America's hardworking families. Jobs. As his own words, the president promised he would be the greatest job producer that God ever created. Instead, his budget steals hundreds of billions of dollars from critical job-creating investments in infrastructure, education, and clean energy. Healthcare. The president promised that he would, quote, free the earth from the miseries of disease. Instead, in addition to the devastation of Trump care, he wants to chop more than $7 billion from the National Institutes of Health, 1/5 of its budget. National Institute, the biblical power to cure, where you have scientific opportunity, you should put resources. Cuts, 1/5 of the budget. Social Security and Medicare has been mentioned by the leader and others. The president promised he would not cut Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security. Instead, and this bears repeating, the budget slashes Social Security disability insurance benefits. And what's strange about it is when asked about it, Director Mulvaney said, we didn't cut Social Security. No, they cut Social Security disability insurance. That's cutting Social Security. Steals another $610 billion from Medicaid on top of the already staggering $840 billion Medicaid cut in Trump care. So we're talking about 1.4, almost $1.5 trillion. Thank you. $1 trillion in cuts in Medicare in Medicaid. The president promised, in terms of clean air and clean water, to make sure, he said, we have clean air and clean water. Instead, he is ransacking the EPA and slashing funding for cleaning up hazardous substances and for enforcing clean air and clean water laws. This is awful. The president's budget is short-sighted, based on false assumptions, goofy assumptions, and a cruel plan that perfectly reflects what Republicans in Congress have been trying to inflict on America for years. It's important to note this because some members are saying, oh, it's dead on arrival. Well, in the House, this budget is a step down the same road, and Mr. Yarmouth can attest to this, the same road to ruin advanced by years of House Republican budgets under Speaker Ryan and Chairman Price. Budgets which ransacked our investments in jobs, education, and for hardworking families. Budgets which sought to hand massive new tax breaks to the rich by stealing from food stamps and slashing Medicaid. All of this to give a tax break to the wealthiest people in our country. The budget, a national budget, should be a statement of our national values. What's important to us as a country should be reflected in how we allocate our resources. This budget fails to recognize that education is the greatest investment we can make in people reaching their aspirations and keeping America number one. And he also fails to recognize that nothing brings more to the Treasury than the education of the American people, early childhood, K through 12, higher education.
In case you guys are just jumping in with us here on Fox 5 Live, you're watching live Nancy Pelosi talking about the Trump budget that was released last night. We also have a few other senators there. Everything we bring to you is live unless otherwise noted, because we want to bring you what's happening live across D.C. and across the nation and across the world. So speaking of that right now, over in Manchester, to honor the victims from last night's tragedy, there is a candlelight vigil going on. So we're going to bring you over to Manchester now. Shaky video here, guys, coming to us from APTN over in Manchester, England, but you're watching a live coverage. It's about, I want to say 5 or 6 p.m. in the early evening there for them. And this, you can see tons of people coming together, community coming together in Manchester for this candlelit ceremony or vigil of sorts to celebrate and honor the victims from last night. Now, interestingly, we actually, if you guys are local, maybe you're watching from DC or the DMV area, because we're here in Washington, DC, we're Fox 5 DC, local Fox 5 News. We have an interesting local angle that I want to show you really quickly. If you check out the tweet in the top of your screen here, sorry, not a tweet, it's actually a text from the drummer for the Ariana Grande concert last night. The drummer was actually Aaron Spears. He's a DC native and local, a little bit of a local angle to the tragedy from last night. Our anchor, Steve Shenemy, was actually able to communicate with Spears, and he responded to a text message saying briefly what had happened. If you can read that on your screen, he says that they finished the show, were walking back to their dressing rooms, and boom, we could hear people. We had no idea what it was, all kinds of speculation as to what was going on and so forth. And the text kind of continues. He says it was so heartbreaking because so many little ones attend our shows. I just keep thinking about them. I'm thankful that no one on the touring crew was physically hurt, but it was a painful memory to live with us. So that was from Aaron Spears, who is a local DC native, a local piece to this tragedy. Very, very sad. We are also finding out news that Ariana Grande did not officially suspend her tour. In fact, she's slated to have concerts in London on Thursday and Friday. We don't know official word yet on if or not those concerts will go on as normally scheduled, but we know that initially she had halted or sort of stopped what was going on currently, so today and possibly tomorrow, but we know that she's set to have a concert in London on Thursday. We have yet to hear back from that venue on what will happen with that. So that's just a little update about Manchester. You're watching live coverage of this vigil over in Manchester. We should have an update from a reporter on the situation over in Manchester shortly, but for now, enjoy this live coverage of the vigil over in Manchester, England.
Thank you, everybody. This is an incredible turnout from good people of Manchester. I'm Councillor Eddie Newman, the Lord Mayor. People of Manchester from all communities have come together at this vigil to condemn last night's atrocity, to remember the victims, many of them children and other young people, and to express solidarity with the families. In particular, as we've just done, we thank the emergency services. The people of Manchester will remember the victims forever, and we will defy the terrorists by all our diverse communities, working together for peace.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is an unbelievable turnout tonight. It shows that they are the very few, but we are the many. We are Manchester. As a small boy, I passed this town hall every school day on my way home to my education. And it symbolises what was great about this city. It symbolises the unity that we've had ever since we first were the city. A unity that's been strengthened by our diversity. We are the successful world city we are because people have come from all parts of the world and we have welcomed them and they have made their homes here. And they pull through the events of last night because we will stand together, whatever our background, whatever our religion, or whatever our beliefs or our politics, we will stand together to say that this city is great and important to align itself against. As we say that, we're sending a signal, not just to Manchester, but across the world.
The doctor's back there. Somebody's fantastic
because
the
love,
doctor.
in the end, is always stronger than hate.
Police again.
We're still grieving.
10 metres.
We can direct those feelings in a positive direction. Our grief can help us to draw close to those who have lost loved ones at this time. Our compassion, our care can help us draw close to those who need support, not just this day and this next week, but those young people whose lives have been changed for decades of life they still have ahead. We need to look after them and see that we're there for them, not just for now, as long as they need us, because they too, whether they were local people or from farther away, from now on, they are Manchester too. Even our anger can be a force for good. We be directed not towards hatred, but towards a determination that terrorists can't be. We direct it towards a determination to work together to fight for the future of this city as our ancestors fought for its future in their generations. This town hall, which symbolises so much of our civic life, is once again tonight a symbol of unity for Manchester, as people of whatever faith Please pray for us, what was in your thoughts, your heart this night. That in itself too will strengthen us. Remember this warm, sunny evening in Manchester, in which we also welcome the world into our hearts, to see us and read, to know that our grief will not destroy us, will remain us. Thank you. To tell you that your presence here this evening will support me, my Greater Manchester Police colleagues, and my emergency service colleagues to continue to work tirelessly on this terrorist atrocity. They will be part of my voice. I thank you for what's going on.
We'll check. Guys, if you're just joining us, you're looking at a live footage of the vigil that is taking place at 6 p.m. Manchester time in Manchester, England. We have word that Manchester United will be playing in a Europa League final game. They'll be having a moment of silence for the victims and wearing black armbands as well to signify honoring the victims and the tragedy. And again, once again, this is live footage from over in Manchester. You're watching this vigil. We're supposed to have an update from a reporter who's putting together a package on this for Fox later tonight. So we'll see if we have that. We'll bring it to you live as well. But for now, this is Remembering the Victims over in Manchester, live video from England. And you're watching Fox 5 Live from Washington, D.C.'s digital newsroom. Thanks for watching, guys. Enjoy.
Last night, the most atrocious people at Greater Manchester showed the world how much we care. I heard some tremendous doctors coming in to support police officers, ambulance workers giving mandates, turning up to help us. Members of the public, their solidarity, and the rest of the world in their thoughts. As David said, the greatness of this region is its diversity of people and its diversity of thought. We must all stand together, not let the terrorists defeat us, not let them stop us going about our daily business or create fear. We must all live in harmony with each other as we stand together to defeat terrorism. Thank you very much.
Good evening. We stand here in a truly great city, in a truly great city region. My name's Sonny Walsh, I'm a local fella. It falls on me to try and sum up what makes this city, its people, its communities so great. The poem. It's called This is the Place. This is the place in the northwest of England. It's ace, it's the best, and the songs that we sing from the stands from our band set the whole planet shaking. Our inventions are legends. There's now we can't make. And so we make brilliant music, we make brilliant bands, we make goals that make souls leap from seats in the stands. And we make things from steel. We make things from cotton. We make people laugh, take that, mix something rotten. And we make you at home. We make you feel welcome. We make something happen. We can't seem to help it. And if you're looking for history, then yes, we are welcome. The Manchester way is to make it yourself. Make us a record, a new number one, and make us a revival. Go on, and make us feel proud that we're winning the league, and make us sing louder, and make us believe it that this is the place that has helped shake the world, and that this is a place where a Manchester girl named Emily Pankhurst from the streets of Moss Side. With sisterhood pride. And this is the place with appliance of science, with onyx, atomic, we struck with defiance in the face of a challenge. We always stand tall, Mancunians in union, delivered in all such as housing and libraries and health, education and unions, and co-ops, the first railway station. So we're sorry, bear with us. We invented commuters. We hope you forgive us. We invented computers. So this is the place to do business and dance, where go-getters and goal-setters know they've a chance. And this is the place where we first played as kids. The man lived and died here. And this is the place where our folks came to work, where they struggled in puddles, they hurt in the dirt, and they built us a city. They built us these towns, and they coughed on the cobbles to the deafening sound of the steaming machines and the screaming of slaves. They were scheming for greatness. They dreamed to their graves, and they left us a spirit. They left us a vibe, that Mancunian way to survive and to thrive and to work. All the dreamers and schemers who still teem through these streets, because this is a place that has been through some hard times. Oppressions, recessions, depressions and dark times. But we keep fighting back with greater Manchester spirit, northern grit, northern wit and greater Manchester lyrics, and it's hard times again. And there's hard times again. There's hard times again in these streets of our city. But we won't take defeat, and we don't want your pity, because this is the place where we stand strong together, with a smile on our face, Mancunians forever, because this is the place in our hearts, in our homes, because this is the place that's a part of our bones, because Manchester gives us such strength from the fact that this
of their security forces investigators that have been deployed into this.
is the place.
Over the next 24 hours,
we should give something back. Always remember. Never forget.
But right now, right here, it's a chance for us to come together.
Forever Manchester. Choose love Manchester. Thank you.
Thank you for giving us only that moment of defiance and definition of what Manchester is. We're going to respond to your words very appropriately now with a minute's silence, a minute in which we
quietly, each of us ourselves in our own hearts, hold up our own feelings this night for those who died, for those who were maimed, for all those caught up in the tragedy, and we pledge ourselves silently to build at Manchester in silence. Manchester, thank you for that silence. Across many cultures and traditions, a candle is a sign of hope. We're going to light a candle. I'm going to try and light it outside despite the wind around here. If that fails, we'll light it inside. But wherever it's lit, this candle may be tiny, may be almost invisible against the bright sunlight of this evening. This candle represents the unquenching light that darkness can never destroy. Thank you, people of Manchester. Manchester gathered here in Albert Square, Manchester, wherever you're joining us from tonight. Thank you for being with us for this vigil.
If you guys are just joining us here on Fox 5 Live, welcome. You're watching a live feed from over in Manchester of a vigil that is ongoing right now. It started at 6 p.m. their time.
Looks like Channel 1, stepping away from the front shot of the White House and taking you to the House floor. We are waiting for the House to offer a moment of silence.
The crowd shouting Manchester over at this vigil. And once again, this all started at about 6 p.m. Manchester time, and they're lighting a candle in remembrance of the victims. We know that 22 are dead and about 59 is what we're hearing the reports of injured. Still more information coming out. We know, we heard from police there that a suspect in the attack died in the attack himself, 22-year-old. They're still finding out if he was colluding with anyone else, if there were any accomplices in this attack. But they're pressing on and honoring their victims from yesterday, and you see the signs here in the crowd. We just heard word that over here on Capitol Hill, the House will be holding a moment of silence for the victims of the attack. We'll try to bring you that as well coming up in about 15 minutes or so. But we'll keep it on this feed here, live feed from over in England, a vigil to remember the victims from last night. And we'll check back in with you guys shortly.
Is here. Martin Grant is also here with me. Martin, there's an awful lot of support, particularly to the police service.
Absolutely, and Ian Hopkins, the Chief Constable, was one of those who spoke, and everybody who spoke, I mean, every sentence almost was an amazing outburst of cheering and support. I don't think any of us anticipated what tonight was going to be like. It's hastily arranged because, of course, it's 24 hours since the bombing last night. But what a turn! I mean, from the sweeping sounds of Elgar at the beginning to this packed Albert Square. I mean, it's difficult to know exactly how many, but there were several thousand people there. And I suppose for me the highlight of that is the poet Tony Walsh. What an astonishing performance of his own poem, the message of defiance, the references to everything that has made Manchester great, from pop stars to footballers to Emily Pankhurst to the inventor of the computer. All of them got references and rousing cheers, and we've just finished with a chance of Manchester. It's absolutely astonishing.
Sense of applause right around the square when he finished
So guys, we don't have a lot of new information or update on the attack besides what we've been bringing to you about the numbers and the statement from Prime Minister Theresa May and others who have commented on it. Here you can see some signs being held by some of the people attending this vigil. This is live happening over in England. These people gathering in remembrance of the victims from last night. So what we know, Theresa May even said it this morning, that the bomber suspect died in the attack himself. And police are still investigating if there's more to that, if there are more accomplices or other people surrounding this attack. But we do know, we saw the tweet from President Donald Trump here earlier, take myself off here, what he tweeted out. Lots of leaders, of course, world leaders and former leaders are tweeting out their solidarity and their support of the victims in this attack. But again, the details kind of still sort of slowly trickling in. We were reporting earlier that Manchester United, the team, will be having a moment of silence, and the House on Capitol Hill here will be holding a moment of silence in about 10 minutes or so, we're told, to honor the victims of this attack. 22 are dead in this attack, including an 8-year-old girl. Lots of the people at this concert, obviously, in that younger age frame for in support, teenage age frame, lots of girls for Ariana Grande, her concert. And we know that her she is scheduled to perform in London this Thursday and Friday. We're gonna have to see how that pans out if she does continue that tour. We haven't heard official word from that venue yet in London on what will happen there. But we're getting lots of live picture in. We have a commenter asking about the Pope. Over in Rome, President Trump did land over in Rome. He'll be meeting with Pope Francis behind closed doors today. So we won't see a statement, at least live, a video from him, but we'll see what becomes of that trip. President Trump is over there visiting Italy for a while and then up to Brussels and back down to Sicily as well. So let's take a look at this video we have coming in. We'll jump over to the House floor for their moment of silence coming up in a few minutes.
Well, Suzanne said to me, can you just get on the train and just find me? I might go through the marks of guys, shopping around, and then we went to Paris, we went to France, we went to
You gotta wait now.
But the good thing is, I sent his phone because I needed it before the guy was with the chance to be able to check that everything was working.
Above the truck. I was trying to get in touch with you to get the. Do you have the TPM stuff?
Tom, this is John. You hear me?
So guys, we'll take you over back stateside to Washington, D.C., where we are right here to check in on the House floor. We're expecting a moment of silence, possibly a few brief words from members there. Check it out.
The House come to order. Members of staff, please take your conversations off the floor. The House will come to order. Shh. The House will come to order. The chair would ask that all present rise for a moment of silence. The chair asks that the House now observe a moment of silence in memory of the victims of the terrorist attack in Manchester, England. Without objection, 5-minute voting will continue. The question is on adoption of the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
I ask for a recorded vote.
A recorded vote is requested. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
All right, guys, in case you missed it, we are talking about the news of the day, of course, jumping back and forth from sources both local and abroad. Of course, with the Manchester tragedy yesterday, we're focusing a lot on our video feeds coming in from Manchester and from England and London and people speaking about that, including, if you want to take a look, this feed is our live shot over there. We have sort of people coming in and out, giving updates and whatnot on the situation over there. Not a lot of new information to give you, but since we've been here in this room with you guys, we know actor Roger Moore has passed away at the age of 89. That broke out earlier this morning. We also just found out that Ariana Grande has suspended her tour due to these events. So I'm sure more will be coming out about that. And likely those concerts that were scheduled for Thursday and Friday are part of that. So they're suspended as well. So we'll find out more and bring that to you as much as we have it. Going to bring you back now to an earlier video. It was an update from officials on the attacks, on just more details as to what happened in case you guys missed it. Check it out right here.
Shown at the scene by people working in incredibly difficult circumstances was fantastic. So I was listening throughout the night from the control center. We have a live feed all the time in our ears to the people speaking on the ground. Everything was calm. Everything was controlled, and the patients were cared for in a way that the specialist staff have been prepared for many years. We had doctors at scene, we had highly specialised paramedics and rescue teams at scene, and the patients were evacuated very, very quickly to a safe area where they were stabilised and moved to the hospital.
John, you practice for mass casualty events. How did the reality differ from all those drills?
Well, in reality, we tested a scenario not that dissimilar to this 1 month ago. So we'd already got all our pre-dispersal plans in place. So it was literally a case of pulling those documents out from the outset and saying, we made a plan, we believe it's a good plan, we know where these individuals need to be taken because of the types of injuries that we can see that they're presenting. And now it's a case of getting them to those hospitals which specialise in that type of care. And that's what we did.
Can you describe what type of injuries you were having to deal with?
David's
I wouldn't like to go into too many details. We have to realise that the patients that are involved in here have families, and these families, we know in these incidents that some of the distress that comes after the shock of the initial incident becomes when they start to really think about what's happened and the implications for their lives. You can imagine what injuries there might be through such a terrible, terrible device being left in a crowded space, but I wouldn't like to detail the injuries that we saw last night.
Dr. Asher, Anita at the BBC News Channel, could you possibly give us a breakdown of how many adults and children are being treated? I know you mentioned there are 12 children specifically.
So 12 children went to Royal Manchester Children's Hospital,
yes,
and they're the children that we took to that hospital. The other hospital received mostly adults, and then there were walking wounded which will have gone to different centres, some of which will have been children, to those centres. I don't really want to extrapolate on the number of children and the number of adults, as for the same reasons that I've just mentioned, is that we don't want to start imagining things around what happened last night, especially for the families that were involved.
Can you say how many are critically ill and how many are stable?
No, that would be a situation for each individual hospital to report on according to who is in their care. But what we can say is that clearly there are a number of individuals who have very, very serious injuries and are requiring intensive care, and people who are going to be in hospital for a long time in terms of that treatment. So one of the things we now have to plan for, including mutual support from other areas, is how we ensure that we don't put too much pressure on our hospitals as they are treating and caring for these severely injured individuals.
Sorry to press, but this was an event for children. It's relevant to ask how many children are being treated.
So I'll repeat that we transported 12 seriously injured children to Royal Manchester Children's Hospital.
And by children, what's the age?
So they're under 16.
Under 16, yeah.
Can you give us an idea of the youngest patients being treated?
I can't at this time, I'm afraid.
Have you had to bring in specialist doctors from elsewhere in the country to help?
At this moment in time, as far as I understand it, all the doctors that were treating these patients are from Greater Manchester. Last night I spoke to all the emergency departments that were admitting patients regularly throughout the night. I know most of those doctors personally, and they're all local doctors.
How many staff were called in extra to those who were already at work to help with the incredible effort put in last night?
So in terms of the ambulance service, we have an enormous amount of people who volunteer to come in on such incidents. So the sheer number of those people I can't comment on. There were 300 people involved in the actual incident itself, some of which will have been rotated and some of which will have come in voluntarily. We also have to ensure during these occasions, because we don't know how long they will last and we don't know what will actually happen within the incident, that the patients who need the usual emergency care are receiving that care. So what we do at the same time is we ensure that all the patients that would be calling an ambulance for usual care receive that care. So we often have to bring extra staff in to ensure that that happens, and I can assure people that last night that did happen in Greater Manchester.
How busy was last night anyway before this happened?
Yesterday was a very busy day, and as the night comes on, the light eases off a little bit. So as the night comes on, you find that the number of resources that we need starts to decrease. So we have a lot of ambulances parked at stations which we can then remobilise very quickly.
Can you give a rough idea of the number of the 59 who are seriously ill?
No,
is it quite a large proportion?
We're not going to talk about that at this time.
Right. And is it right there was a conference of doctors in Manchester who rallied around?
I'm not aware of that.
We're done.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
John Rouse, ROUSC. No, thank you.
Did you say 200? I might have missed that bit.
So guys, that was an update from earlier from officials on the Manchester tragedy from last night. We've been following it. If you're watching, thanks for watching. Let us know where you're watching from. You can use our live chat on the side of your screen. And don't forget to click subscribe. Use that button, and that'll just let you know whenever we pop up live with video and breaking news and events for you. We're kind of continuing to follow any video sources that we have live today from the tragedy over there, including this shot that we've been showing you over in Manchester, just of what it looks like over there today as night slowly falls on it. It's early evening there, around 6, almost 7 p.m. Over there. We're going to continue to bring you that coverage as we have it live. And we're going to be finding some more video for you to share as well on our show. I'm going to bring it back into the studio here just so you know. We have myself here and Cam, who's helping me out. He'll be here for the next few weeks. So let us know where you're watching from and chat us up. We want to chat with you on our chat. And as always, you can follow us on social media. We're Fox5DC on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all of it. We got you covered. Gonna bring it back to that shot live over in Manchester and leave you here for a second as we find some more for you to bring on our breaking news show.
Yep. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All 3 lights. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I thought it was yours.
From 10, 9, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Excuse me? No, you can't, is it? Yeah.
One, two, three, four, 5, Jan, coming at you from Manchester, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 1, okay, great. 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Manchester, coming at you live from Manchester, Young Comrades. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good? Okay. Yeah.
Hey guys, so we're continuing to bring you this coverage of the Manchester tragedy and the follow-up from that and the updates on that, but we're also following some of the follow from President Trump releasing his budget, his $4.1 trillion budget from last night, including we had live some senators that were talking about how it will affect people in rural America, how some of the cuts that President Trump is proposing will affect people, but we also heard from the administration side as well. Just moments ago, earlier this morning, in the White House press briefing room, Director of the OMB, Mulvaney, was there giving his take on it, addressing this budget. And our reporter, Ronica Cleary, was there to get the scene and to get the information. She'll be reporting on that later tonight for our evening broadcasts, as usual. So I'm going to bring you that playback from the White House press briefing room from this morning so you can take a look at what was said. There were some sharp, somewhat acerbic comments made about it, and it was pretty entertaining, pretty interesting. So check it out.
Thanks, Barron's. 11 or 12. I took my son to his first concert when he was 11 or 12, and I think all of us who have children that age and take them to concerts, this is something that hits especially close to home, and we stand shoulder to shoulder with our ally and our friends in the UK, and also have the victims and their families in our hearts as we talk about these other things that somehow pale in comparison. With that said, let's talk about the budget. And I know that some of you were here yesterday, and I'll some of what I say at the opening be a repeat, but a lot of folks were not here. So let's talk about what this is. This is the President's FY 2018 budget. The name on the cover is the New Foundation for American Greatness. Okay? As I read through it over the weekend, as I did, in fact, we've been working on this since before I actually got here, it struck me that the title should have been different, that the title should have been a taxpayer first budget, because that's what this is. And as I was trying to reconcile those two things, well, it's called the New Foundation for American Greatness, but I wanted to call it the taxpayer first budget. It struck me that that was what was really new, or one of the things that was new about this budget. That we looked at this budget through the eyes of the people who were actually paying the bills. I think for years and years, we've simply looked at a budget in terms of the folks who are on the back end of the programs, the recipients of the taxpayer money, and we haven't spent nearly enough time focusing our attention on the people who pay the taxes. I got a couple questions yesterday. I know I will today about compassion. Compassion needs to be on both sides of that equation. Yes, you have to have compassion for folks who are receiving the federal funds, but also you have to have compassion for the folks who are paying it. And that is one of the things that is new about this president's budget. What else is new? It's new in that it balances for the first time in at least 10 years. The last time we looked, we couldn't find a President Obama budget that balanced ever. I think he tried a couple times to convince us that primary balance, which was balance without regard for interest payments on the debt, was balanced. We reject that. We get to an actual balance on this budget within the 10-year window. It begins to reduce the size of the debt relative to the size of the economy in year one. Okay, that's how important it was and is to this president to try and bring some fiscal discipline. Again, if you're looking through the perspective of the people who pay, you'd like to be able to tell them at some point in the foreseeable future you're going to be able to balance. The previous administration completely gave up on that. As I've said before to the previous administration, if you borrow money, if I take money from you and I have no intention of ever giving it back, that is not debt. That is theft. And if we're going to borrow money from people, we have to have a plan for how we're going to pay it back. And that's what this budget does, and that's one of the things that is new about this budget. The next word in the title is foundation. What is the foundation that we're trying to build here? And I sum it up this way. Again, I saw an article a couple weeks ago about what is Trumponomics. And the Trumponomics is part of the foundation here. What is it? It's sustained 3% economic growth. Everything that we do in this administration, every single time I am called into the Oval Office, whether it's on immigration policy, healthcare policy, tax reform policy, trade policy, budgets and spending, the focus is sustained 3% economic growth. We have been attacked stunningly by some folks on the left and even in the mainstream who say that that's an unreasonable assumption. We should stop and think how absurd that is, to think that 3% growth in an American economy is to some people an absurd assumption. It used to be normal. 10 years ago, it was normal. In fact, it's been normal for the history of the country. I think the average over the 240-odd years that we've been a country has been over 3%. It's certainly been over 3% since World War II. The 1.9% growth rates that the previous administration assumed towards the end of their administration, and the 1.9% growth rates for the entire 10-year window that the CBO growth rates that the CBO assumes, the Congressional Budget Office assumes, are something we simply reject. That is a pessimistic look at what the potential for this country and for what this country's people is. We reject that pessimism and say, you know what, we probably should have gone in and assumed 3.5% or 4% growth, because that would be aggressive. 3% growth is just getting back to normal. I've said it before, I say it again. If you are 30 years old and you are watching this or you're sitting here, you have never had a job as an adult in a healthy American economy. It's either been a recession or a slow, sluggish economy stumbling along at less than 2% growth. The differences between 2% growth and 3% growth doesn't sound like much. In fact, I cringe when I hear people say it's only a 1% difference. It's not. It's a 50% difference, but that's just math. The difference in that is tangible. At 3% economic growth in a healthy American economy, if you don't like your job, you can quit because you know you can go get another job. If you get laid off, you know you can go off and start your own business. These are the opportunities that people have forgotten about. And these are the things, the optimism in the country, the dynamism in the country that the president is so eager to push back and to bring back to the country. It's what drives every one of our policies, especially when it comes to anything dealing with jobs and the economy. We will bring back 3% economic growth to this country, and those numbers are assumed in this budget. By the way, if you don't, the budget will never balance. If you assume 1.9% growth, my guess is you'll never see a balanced budget again. So we refuse to accept that that's the new normal in this country. 3% is the old normal. 3% will be the new normal again under the Trump administration, and that is part and parcel, one of the foundations of this budget. Along those same lines, the budget also speaks to and funds a lot of the president's priorities. We've talked about this since March when we unveiled, the budget blueprint. National security, obviously, a priority for this president. Border security, another priority for him. We can talk at length if you want to today about the details of the additional money that we spend in those areas. The total plus up again for the 2018 budget is $54 billion over the Congressional Budget Office baseline. The law enforcement gets a significant increase here. And that's both at the federal and the state and local level as we follow through on our efforts to enforce the law. Veterans see more money here. That's a classic example of looking at the budget through the eyes of the taxpayer. I put myself in the role of the person who's actually taking the money from you as taxpayer and giving the money to someone else in terms of a benefit. And if I can look you in the eye and say, look, I need to take this money from you so that I can help this injured vet, I can do that in good conscience. I can look you in the eye, and my guess is you're okay with that. I am a lot less comfortable to the point of not wanting to look you in the eye and say, look, I need to take this money from you to give to this person over here who really isn't disabled but is getting a disabled benefit, or this person over here who is supposed to use the money to go to school but isn't actually going, or a program that is supposed to encourage you to graduate from high school or from college but is only 6% effective. That's the type of compassion we talk about, and that's the type of different perspective that we bring to the budget. And it's one of the things that I like to talk about when we talk about the veterans. People don't mind paying their taxes as long as they know that that money is not being wasted and frittered away. We also increased spending for school choice and paid parental leave, making this president the first president of either party to propose a nationwide paid parental leave program for parents and adopted parents. There's $20 billion in that over the course of the 10-year window. I think I gave an incorrect number yesterday at 25. What are those, by the way? National security, border security, law enforcement, veteran school choice, paid parental leave. They are all campaign promises that the president made while he was running for office. And that's why I say these numbers are simply the president's policies put onto paper. We took the president's speeches, we took his priorities, we turned them into numbers, and that's what's in the document. Does not, along the same lines, not a single thing in here touches Social Security retirement or Medicare. Why? Because that's what the president said when he was campaigning, that he would not change those things. In fact, I've told the story several times of sitting in the president's office with a list of possible reforms to mandatory, what some people call entitlement spending, and have the president at the end of the list go, yes, yes, no, 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 no. And the no, no, no's were always Social Security, retirement, and Medicare. Didn't change those at all because he promised people that he wouldn't. We can do all that and balance at the same time because we look at spending differently. We're no longer going to measure compassion by the number of programs or the number of people on those programs, but by the number of people we help get off of those programs. We're not going to measure compassion by the amount of money that we spend, but by the number of people that we help. And that is how you can get 3% economic growth. That is how you can balance the budget in 10 years. That is how you can borrow money from people with still promising and intending to pay it back from them. That is how you can help people take charge of their own lives again. And that is the part of the budget that deals with the American greatness. So with that, I'll take questions for a little bit. I know there's a couple. Yes, ma'am.
So President Trump sticking to his campaign promise not to touch Medicare or Social Security retirement benefits, but not Medicaid. So how does he intend to square that with his supporters?
Yeah, a couple things about Medicaid, and this is one of my favorite stories to tell about Washington spending. Keeping in mind, and I know that y'all probably get this, but if you're watching this at home, in Washington, D.C., if you spent $100 last year on something, okay, and we spent $100 on it this year on that same thing, in Washington, people call that a cut, okay? 100 last year, 100 this year. Y'all call it a cut. In fact, I've seen several occasions where we spent $100 last year and $102 this year, and many people will still call that a cut because the budget is hardwired by the Congressional Budget Office to go up every single year. And if the Congressional Budget Office says we spent $100 last year and we're supposed to spend $106 this year, for a lot of people, anything less than 107 is a cut. In fact, I've actually heard 106 referred to as a freeze because it simply stays in line with the Congressional Budget Office. A classic example of how Washington speaks differently than the world back home. So a couple things about Medicaid. Okay? There are no Medicaid cuts in the terms of what ordinary human beings would refer to as a cut. We are not spending less money one year than we spent before. What we are doing is growing Medicaid more slowly over the 10-year budget window than the Congressional Budget Office says that we should or says that we will under current law. Why do we change it? We change it, and we change those growth rates in Medicaid spending because of the American Health Care Act, which this president does support. But we said from the very beginning we support the House efforts. We're looking forward and are working right now with the Senate on working on what their health care bill would look like. But we support the American Health Care Act, and that does change Medicaid. How does it change it? And this is something that I don't think enough people are talking about. It makes it a lot better and a lot more able to deliver the necessary services to the people who need it. Here's how. Medicaid is funded in large part by the states. In fact, I was in the state legislature, and our second largest line item, I think, after K-12 education was Medicaid. And we would see this program come down from Washington with all these instructions on how to use it and say, goodness gracious, this won't work in South Carolina. We happen to think, for example, that Medicaid is designed for more of an urban poor population than a rural poor, as predominates in South Carolina. And we would ask them every single year, would ask them, the federal government, give us more control over how this money gets spent. We think we can do it better. We think we can either provide the same services to the same number of people cheaper, or we can provide better service to more people at the same amount of money if you let us do it better. And the federal government always said no. In the American Health Care Act, we say yes. And we give the governors and the state legislatures a lot more control over Medicaid. Everyone is interested in seeing the truly needy in their state and in our nation get the care that we promise them in Medicaid. But there's a better way to do it than under current law, which is Obamacare. We can also talk about what a failure that is. But there's a better way to do it, and that's what the American Health Care Act does. In the back, yes, sir.
You mentioned the previous administration, the stagnant growth, and that the deficit has actually doubled since 2008, about 2020. But a member of that administration, Larry Summers, today actually went on the attack. I'm curious how you would respond to his assessment of the budget. He called it simply ludicrous, and that the administration is double counting the tax cut and the benefit from growth.
I did get a chance to just see the piece that Mr. Summers wrote on the way out the door. And I could, just the ideas were rushing into my head what I might say to Larry if he were here. So if he's hiding in the back, now would be a good time for him to come out and identify himself. I went back and looked at some of the economic assumptions that the Obama administration made in its first couple of years. And I want to say on a couple of different occasions, their assumed growth rate was more than 4.5%. Keep in mind, this is the first administration in history, okay? It was the first decade, the first 8-year period in history not to have a 3% growth rate. Yet they were promising us 4.5% growth. So if Larry wants to talk about unreasonable assumptions, we talk about my 3% growth rate and his 4.5%, and we'll talk about who actually is closer to reality. Regarding the double counting, here's one of the things I think that a lot of folks have overlooked. And we did it on purpose because it's sort of hard to count this, and you don't want to make too many assumptions. You have to make assumptions about a budget. You're talking about a document that will look 10 years into the future. So it's natural for both administrations from either party to make some assumptions. But one of the assumptions we didn't make was that we didn't close any of the tax gap. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, the tax gap is the amount of money that we should collect in taxes every single year, but don't. 2016, that number is $486 billion. almost enough to close the deficit that year. And we don't assume an additional penny of that being closed as part of our tax reform. Why is that important? There's probably three reasons people don't want to pay tax. Number one, they just don't pay tax, and there's always a certain number of people who don't want to do that. Number two, it's just too hard for them to do it. It's too complicated for them to do it. Two reasons. Now I feel like I'm a Monty Python skit. The two reasons. And we think that, exactly, that if it's a simpler tax code, okay, that people are more likely to pay. That simply makes sense. If you can really fill out your tax returns on a single piece of paper, you're much more likely to actually do it. It's also easier for us to see if you're paying the right amount. A simpler code is easier for you to pay and easier for the government to see if you're paying the right amount, which would allow us very reasonably to assume a reduction in the tax gap. And we don't do a single penny of that. So I'm aware of the criticisms, and I would simply come back and say, look, there's other places where we were probably overly conservative in our accounting. We stand by the numbers. We thought that the assumption that the tax reform would be deficit neutral was the most reasonable of the three options that we had. We could either assume that our tax reform was deficit neutral, we could assume it would reduce the deficit, we would assume it would add to the deficit. And given the fact that we're this early in the process about dealing with tax reform, we thought that assuming that middle road was the best way to do it. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Director. Can you characterize the treatment of climate science programs and those cuts to those? And do you describe those as a taxpayer waste if you do cut them?
You tell me. I think the National Science Foundation last year used your taxpayer money to fund a climate change musical. Do you think that's a waste of your money?
What about climate science?
I'll take that as a yes, by the way. So you see my point. What I think you saw happen during the previous administration is the pendulum went too far to one side, where we were spending too much of your money on climate change and not very efficiently. We don't get rid of it here. Do we target it? Sure. Do a lot of the EPA reductions aimed at reducing the focus on climate science? Yes. Does it mean that we are anti-science? Absolutely not. We're simply trying to get things back in order to where we can look at the folks who pay the taxes and say, look, yeah, we want to do some climate science, but we're not going to do some of the crazy stuff the previous administration did. And I will note for the record that you didn't say anything about about the musical. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just wondering, you were talking about making assumptions. What are your assumptions and expectations for the budget in reference to the wall? I mean, Congress really seems to have come on the record and say they're not in support of funding it. So what are your expectations?
Well, some folks aren't in support of it. Some folks are very much in support of it. By the way, I did read something, and I was really disappointed yesterday. I don't know if there's anybody here from the folks who broke the embargo, but I thought there was only one. I don't think it was anybody here. Somebody did, but I read the article yesterday about how we supposedly dramatically reduced our request for the wall funding. It's not accurate. The 2017 request was $1.5 billion for border security and $3.0 billion in additional DHS funding. And the request in the proposal in the 2018 is 2.6 for border security, almost twice as much, and 4.5 for total DHS. Again, a much larger number than 2017. So I'm not really sure how the person got to that number. But let me address your question. We are absolutely dead serious about the wall. In fact, after taking care of the national security and the vets, my guess is it's in the president's top three. In fact, I know for a fact that it is. And we've made that very clear to the folks on the Hill that while we did not get as much money as we wanted for border security in the 2017 omnibus, we did get a lot. Many of you were here for the presentation I gave on that. And we will see increased border security between today and the end of the calendar year. By the same token, we're going to continue to press on. We do think there's a role for technology, a role for additional people, all of which we ask for in those in this 2018 budget request. But it is absolutely a priority for the president. Yes, sir.
You said you reject the premise of the economy not growing at 3%.
Yep.
Did you set the 3% target and then reverse engineer the figures in order to achieve that?
No,
Give us the math.
Yeah, keep in mind, we had, because there was a lot of numbers that were floated during the campaign, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5. And we didn't start with any of those numbers and work back. What we sat down and did is this, In fact, it was the group of, it was myself, Secretary Mnuchin, Director Cohn from the NEC, who at the time I think was playing, and still is playing filling the role often filled by the head of the Council of Economic Advisors. And what we did is we sat down and said, we looked at the CBO baseline numbers and said, okay, what will our tax policy increase GDP by? And what are the ranges for that? What will our regulatory policy impact GDP by, and what could the ranges be for that? What does repealing Obamacare do for increasing GDP? By the way, the Congressional Budget Office actually has hard numbers on that. The Congressional Budget Office assumes that if you repeal Obamacare, it will increase GDP because Obamacare creates a disincentive to work. So we went through the methodology item by item and arrived at the 3%. And I also think that you'll see that as well in the ramp up to that 3%. We don't assume 3% in year one, for example. I think our assumption for this year is 2.3, then 2.5, then 2.7 or 8, and then 3% out. So we think it's a very reasonable and very defensible macroeconomic assumption. Digging a little bit deeper into the numbers, we also think that our numbers regarding the related interest rates and unemployment rates are likewise defensible. We get a lot of questions sometimes about productivity, we hear these stories now. There's an interesting story in one of the leading newspapers, I can't remember if it was the Times or the Post yesterday, about a business in Utah that can't find enough people to work. And people say, oh, how are you going to grow the economy at 3% if we're already facing a tight employment market? I'm going to pull the numbers up here so I don't butcher these. Of course, as soon as I say that, I can't pull the numbers up. The difference between the U6 rate and the U3 rate is, I think the number was in excess of 6 million people. What does that mean? The U3 rate is what we call the unemployment rate. It's what everybody calls the unemployment rate. The U6 rate is those folks who are unemployed. Okay, they're in the labor force looking for work, but they can't find it. Plus the people who are marginally attached or working part-time for economic reasons, working part-time because they can't find full-time work. Okay. That difference, that delta, is over 6 million people. So we believe that we should be able to drive U3 and U6 together and get those folks into full-time employment, and that's one of the ways you get productivity gains.
You're saying that U6, a measure that goes back to 1994, you can have it equal the U3 measure?
We think that's, in a properly functioning economy, that would be the case. Because keep in mind, what's the difference? Marginally attached and part-time, against your will. You want to work full-time, but you're not. So you're technically not unemployed, because that's not the technical definition of the U3 unemployment rate, but you want to be doing more. You want to be more productive, to go back to the economic terms. And we do believe that we bring those people back to the job place, they will end up adding to productivity.
Director Mulvaney, thanks for doing this. On the day that he came down the escalator famously and became candidate Trump, he said, we're going to save Medicare, excuse me, we're going to save Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security without cuts. Have to do it. I recognize that he's going to be saving Social Security retirement, but he's not saving Social Security disability insurance, which benefits more than 10 million Americans. So is the president keeping his promise on that program?
Thank you for that. Yes, he absolutely is, and here's why. The fact that it's called Social Security disability insurance, I think is well, put it to you this way. We propose to do parental paid leave in this budget. Again, the first president of either party to do that. We propose to do that using the tools that already exist through the state unemployment insurance. Okay. By the way, I think that's the same way that Canada does it now. There are a couple of states, New York, New Jersey, I think California, who already provide statewide paid parental leave. They do it through their disability insurance programs, their employment disability. That does not mean that parental leave is unemployment, and it does not mean that parental leave is a disability. It simply means that that program is managed through the infrastructure that already existed at the time it was set up. And the same is true with Social Security disability. It is a welfare program for the long-term disabled. It is not what most people would consider to be Social Security.
So will any of those individuals who presently receive SSDI receive less as a result of this budget?
I hope so. If there are people who are getting SSDI who should not be getting it,
those people who should be getting it,
they
receive less.
Oh no! If people are really disabled, and there are folks who need this program, listen, that's.
So how are you going to better determine who is getting it that shouldn't be getting it? There's so many anti-fraud programs that exist already.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I could get down in the weeds. But one of the ones we have, one of the proposals we have, is actually how we pick the administrative law judges because I think it's a lifetime appointment on day one, and we try and phase them in to make sure they're not. There's been several judges accused of sort of abusing the program. But to your point is an excellent one. we are not kicking anybody off of any program who really needs it. That's not. We have plenty of money in this country to take care of the people who need help. Okay? And we will do that. We don't have enough money to take care of people, everybody who doesn't need help. So what we try and do is look at these programs, again, through the perspective of the people paying for it, and say, SNAP, for example. It's like, I know I haven't been asked a question about it. 42 million Americans, I thought it was 44. I'll take your word for it on 42. It is. I think the high was 47, and that was during the recession. Pre-recession, the numbers were as low as 28. It spiked during the recession. Okay, which you would expect on a counter-cyclical program like food stamps. During bad economic times, more people will go on to food stamps. So it's completely within reason to look at that number. It went from 28 million on food stamps before the recession to 47 at the height. It's 44 or 42 today. Yet here we are, 8 years removed from the end of the recession. We've had economic growth, albeit slow. We're at what we consider to be full employment with the limitations of U3 and U6. Why is the number still that high? Is it possible, if you're paying for it, isn't it reasonable for you to at least ask the question, are there people on that program who shouldn't be on there? And shouldn't it be up to the government to make sure we can look folks who are paying the taxes in the eye and say, you know what, we did everything we could to make sure that everybody on SSDI is really disabled. We don't think that's unreasonable. In fact, we think that
All right, guys, that's where our video coverage of that ends. That was from earlier, so it was not a live event, but it was just moments ago, earlier today. Mick Mulvaney, the director of the OMB, Office of Management and Budget, and he is such an interesting personality, interesting animated guy. I thought that was kind of interesting to bring to you. Some of his statements are quite, pressing and acerbic, and he even brought up the point he was trying to address people in their 20s and 30s, and he was saying, hey, for those of you who are 30, you've never seen sort of an economy that isn't struggling or that isn't a little bit wavering based on everything that's happened in the past, when people like of my age came out of college and what we faced and stuff like that. So he tries to relate it back, I think, to sort of like the younger crowd, which I find is interesting. So I wanted to bring that video to you to give you a little update on that. What you saw right earlier, there we go. That bottom right of your screen is a live shot of Manchester, England. We've been covering the events there and sort of the updates and the follow on the tragedy from last night. You're watching Fox 5 Live in Washington, D.C. at Fox 5 Local News. And right now we have a live event going on the Hill. It's sort of a Senate stakeout of sorts with a bunch of senators speaking. We have a camera there. We're going to bring you that live. Just want to address really quick, Anna, thanks for watching. If you're still on with us, President Trump is in Rome. He's meeting with the Pope tomorrow. So today and tomorrow he's in Rome. He goes up to Brussels for a NATO summit on Thursday and then back down to Sicily on Friday. So a bit of a European tour there, Western Europe, for the next few days. So we'll have as much as we can get of that live coverage for you guys. We're going to go over now to Capitol Hill where we have our Senate stakeout cam. This is live. Let's see what Mitch McConnell has to say. He's up at the mic right now.
We've voted on president's budgets, and members of the party of the president, I know this happened during the Obama administration, the Democrats voted against President Obama's budget. So it's a recommendation. We'll take these things into consideration and we'll move forward. What I do like about it is it clearly focuses on increasing defense spending, which we know is absolutely critical given the threats that we face.
There's no pattern of the president trying to interfere in some way with ongoing investigations. Apparently told James Comey that he should drop this one investigation, and now the courts have been urging his intel chiefs to downplay the issue of collusion. Does this concern you in any way?
Well, as all of you know, this investigation is going to be handled by two entities, the special counsel and the Senate Intelligence Committee, and I'm confident that both of them will handle it well.
Back to the budget for a second. You mentioned Medicaid at the top of your remarks. On that point specifically, the president's budget would make deep cuts to Medicaid. Is that something Republicans in Congress want?
Well, as I said before, the president's made his recommendations. We're in the process right now of deciding what we think ought to be done with Medicaid. We had the head of CMS up here just a few minutes ago talking about this. And that's why we've been having 3 meetings a week to determine exactly what kind of health care repeal and replacement we're going to have up for a vote here in the Senate.
You can't pass a budget while the healthcare debate is going on. Yet you want to move the appropriations bill. So what are you going to use to set the top line numbers? Will it be the PCA caps?
Well, we'll have to negotiate the top line with Senate Democrats. We know that. They will not be irrelevant in the process. And at some point here in the near future, those discussions begin.
Senator McConnell, one of your Republican colleagues complained that you're only talking to Republicans, not holding hearings on health care, and doing this behind closed doors. How do you respond to that?
Well, of course not. The Democrats are not interested in fixing this problem. They've made it very, very clear they have no interest whatsoever in fixing the status quo. And my colleagues have already explained what the status quo represents: higher premiums, higher co-payments, higher deductibles, lack of choices. They're apparently happy with that because they don't want to discuss getting something better. So we're not going to waste our time talking to people who have no interest in fixing the problem. Thank you.
Guys, if you're watching our show, if you've been watching, you know that we've been following all the live events and news of the day, kind of jumping around here. Looks like they're waiting for some more people to come speak. This is a Senate stakeout, so they sort of have this area set up where they have a podium and they wait for notables and senators to come out and speak to these journalists. So we try to grab that for you guys live just to keep you up to date with what's going on the Hill. Lots of talk going around, of course, as President Trump released his budget last night. He himself is overseas on his first international trip, as we've been covering. So we've been bringing that to you as well. And then, of course, all the follow-up on the Manchester tragedy from yesterday. And then, of course, a local story. The Bowie State University second lieutenant of the U.S. Army student and officer there, or second lieutenant, who was killed tragically on the University of Maryland campus by a suspect who police and FBI are now investigating as a hate crime. His what would have been his graduation was today, and we streamed that live as well on our Facebook page. You can check that out in its entirety there. I'm going to bring you a couple clips from that because it was very moving to see them honor this student, and just a horror, just a tragedy for really both campuses. That was a couple days ago when he was fatally stabbed on the University of Maryland campus. We're going to wait around to see what we have on the Hill here. A few more moments. Jumping around now, quickly, live shot of Manchester. That's what it looks like there. We have cameras to get all the newest updates that we've been hearing. We know 22 are dead, 59 injured in that attack that is being associated with ISIS. They've claimed responsibility for that attack. We'll hear more in the coming hours, details about that. So we'll go back now to the Hill and just wait around a little more, and then probably end the show with the ceremony from this morning at the Bowie State University graduation that we streamed earlier. So thanks as always for watching Fox 5 Live, guys. We're on social media at Fox 5 DC on all platforms. And we'll come back to you shortly with some more updates on what's going on here and around the world. We're Washington, DC's Fox 5 DC digital newsroom. We'll come back with you shortly, guys. We'll listen on the Senate in Capitol Hill, and then we'll jump over to Bowie State University's opening of their graduation ceremony from this morning.
Okay. All right, Thune. Enough. Graham.
All right, guys, looks like we have Chuck
We're
Schumer
gym
coming
buddies,
up
so
and a
we can
few
talk
others. We'll hear from them. And don't forget
know.
to comment in the chat
Let me
box
tell
if you have
you, he
any
looks a lot
thoughts
better
or
in the
comments
gym
about what
than
you're
I do,
watching.
let me tell you.
And
He
we'll
lifts a
try to
lot
answer your
more weights
questions.
And does a lot more exercise. Okay, everyone here, I'm delighted to be joined by my colleagues, Bernie Sanders, who's the ranking member on our budget committee, and Debbie Stabenow and Jeff Merkley, who are members of the committee. Now, let me say this. Simply put, the Trump budget takes a sledgehammer to the middle class and working Americans, lavishes tax breaks on the very wealthy, and imagines all of the deficit problems away with fantasy math. This budget exists somewhere over the rainbow, where the dreams of Mick Mulvaney, Paul Ryan, and the Koch brothers really do come true. Of course, those dreams are a nightmare for working families in America. If you'd ever want to see a budget that reveals what an administration is all about, this is it. It's just brutal. To the very people Donald Trump campaigned with and who voted for him. And it gives huge rewards to the wealthiest people in America. God bless them, but they're doing just fine. And every place you look in this budget, there are new awful surprises. And they're going to continue to surprise us for the next while. It is no wonder that Mitch McConnell did not embrace the budget. In fact, he distanced himself from it. I think most Republicans will do that too, which shows you how out of touch Donald Trump is with America and how far away he is from where he campaigned, how far away he is from helping Americans, how he is breaking promise after promise after promise to the working Americans. The budget cuts transportation funding, education funding, makes it harder for students to repay their student loan debt. Cuts an $800 billion, an additional $600 billion in Medicaid, in addition to the over $800 billion the House health care bill cut. And Medicaid, make no mistake about it, it helps the poor, and that's a good thing, but it has become a middle-class program. 60% of the people in nursing homes, Medicaid is what helps them pay for it. And so this is going to affect many average Americans. You're a family, a couple, 45 years old, you have you're a couple, you're each 45, you have 3 kids, you're saving for college, you're struggling to pay the bills, but at least you know that Dad, who's ill, is in a nursing home. After this bill passes, the choice is going to be pay thousands of dollars more a month out of your own pocket or take Dad home, and there may be no room for him. It's just everywhere you look. Senator Cornyn stated the budget's a proposal of the president's priorities. If we could assemble every American in a football stadium and just tell them what this budget is about, Trump's numbers would go down to about 5%. And that's why our Republicans are running away from it. So, and one more thing. On the campaign trail, presidential candidate Trump said he's not going to cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. Well, so far, 2 out of those 3 are now being cut. Social Security disability, which so many people need, and make no mistake about it, if the hard right gets away with cutting Social Security disability, they'll be after Social Security old age benefits next. And of course, they clobber Medicaid. The irony of the Trump budget is that it hurts many of the people who supported him most in the campaign. That's the great irony of the budget. When you add it all up, the Trump budget is a comic book villain bad budget. And just like comic books, it relies on fantasy to make the numbers work. There's only one bit of optimism here. Our Republican colleagues dislike this budget almost as much as we do. And so if the likelihood is what happened with the 2017 budget will happen here. Democrats and Republicans will tell President Trump and his minions to stay at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue. Let us work out a budget together that will make America a better place. Bernie Sanders.
Thanks, Chuck. Let me concur with what Chuck just said. But let me add this. What this budget amounts to is an unprecedented transfer of wealth in the United States from the middle class and working families to the very, very wealthiest people in this country. Listen to this. By repealing the estate tax, the Walton family, worth $130 billion, will get up to a $53 billion tax break at the same time as this budget will drive children off of the Children's Health Insurance Program, deny millions of people the health care they desperately need, make it harder for working class kids to go to college, slash environmental protections. So what we are seeing is unprecedented tax breaks for the people who don't need it and devastating cuts for programs that the middle class, working families, and lower income people do need. This is a budget that is bad economics. It is immoral. It is a budget that the American people will reject, and it is a budget that must not see the light of day in Congress.
Senator Stabenow.
Well, thank you. First, let me underscore what my colleagues have said so far. This is a budget for the wealthiest Americans, puts more money in their pocket, and turns its back on everybody trying to stay in the middle class or trying to get into the middle class. It's really quite shocking when you look at the priorities that are revealed. And I want to specifically talk about small towns in rural America where I grew up in northern Michigan. Farmers and families in every small town will be hurt by this budget. 21% across the board cut in Department of Agriculture, plus another $231 billion in rural opportunities and jobs, all across Michigan, all across the country. Can you imagine zeroing out funding for rural and water sewer projects in small towns? Zeroing out help for small businesses to get started or expand and create new businesses. Small airports. Many parts of the country, it's very difficult to be able to connect for medical care or for jobs, and they again attack small airports and police and fire services and hospitals that we've talked so much about. My mother was director of nursing at a small town hospital in Clare, and under these Medicaid cuts, which by the way phase in over 10 years to about a 50% cut in Medicaid, hospitals like where my mom was a nurse will close. Doctors will go away, and oftentimes this is the largest employer, and those jobs will be gone as well. Telehealth or housing or the 25% cut in food assistance, where this disproportionately goes to small towns and poverty and rural communities around America. And on top of that, we're at a time for agriculture where prices are down and many family farmers are just trying to hold on. What I hear all the time from people around Michigan is they want their small town to be a place where their children will come back after going to college, to come back and be part of the community. If you got the quality of life and the jobs and you don't support technology like broadband so that you can live and grow and have a business in small towns, we won't have small towns. And it's shocking to see how Donald Trump has turned his back on them.
Jeff Merkley.
All right, guys, we're going to take you out of that Senate stakeout on the Hill and slowly roll out our show today, actually. But I wanted to point you to our Facebook page. So be sure to check out Fox 5 DC on Facebook if you want to catch that beautiful ceremony that was this morning at Bowie State University, their graduation commencement this morning, where lots of speakers and students spoke out and honored Richard Collins III, who the second lieutenant in the U.S. Army, who was killed a couple of days ago on the University of Maryland's campus in that fatal stabbing. More follow on that, and of course on the situation over in Manchester. This live look over here at our camera over in Manchester, England, as night slowly falls over there. We're going to keep you guys updated on our website, so be sure to check in with that. Fox5DC.com, also our Facebook page and our Twitter, Fox5DC. We'll have all the stories for you also tonight on our TV broadcast. So that's going to do it for us, guys. We're going to roll out of the show, Fox 5 Live. I'm here every weekday along with my intern friend Cam, who's here to help us for the next few weeks or months. We don't know. But thanks for joining us, guys. I'm Molly Nevola here. We're going to set you up with a live shot of the Capitol Dome as we say goodbye for the day. We're on every day from 11:30 into the afternoon for your lunch break, for whenever you want to check in with YouTube on our stream or our website to see what's going on live around the nation's capital and around the world. We'll have all the stuff coming into us at our sources, at our fingertips. So follow us and be sure to check in tomorrow, guys. Have a great Tuesday, and we'll see you tomorrow.